Oreo. Who doesn't know this delicious chocolatey and creamy cookie? Twist it, lick it, dunk it. I'm sure you've seen the ads and tried it for yourself. But did you know Oreo was actually a ripoff? That's right. Oreo did not come up with their famous chocolate with cream sandwich cookie on its own. The story of Oreo's creation was as dark as its chocolate cookie filled with grit, betrayal, and creativity in the pursuit of the American dream and the burial of the original cookie, Hydrox. Throughout the years, Oreo survived and thrived through questionable business practices and a stroke of genius marketing strategy, cementing its place as the new, original cookie while Hydrox faded into obscurity. How did it happen, and how did Oreo become the world's most famous cookie? Welcome to Gritflix, the channel that gives you high-quality mini-documentaries covering topics about money, power, and business. This is the first episode in our new series, Pioneer Pitfalls, where we explore first-mover businesses that failed to measure up over time. Now, this is the dark truth behind Oreo and Hydrox, the Cookie Conglomerate. Our story begins with Jacob Luce, a young entrepreneur from Mercersburg, Pennsylvania. Having dropped out of school at 16, Jacob struggled to slowly build a life for himself. He first worked at a dry goods store, earning $5 per week. It was hard, back-breaking work, but the experience molded him into a clever entrepreneur. Over the years, Jacob set aside his earnings to slowly build wealth and enable him to open up not just one, but 2 stores by himself. Business was going great, but not one to rest on his laurels, Jacob soon became restless for his next adventure. In 1882, he found exactly what he was looking for in Kansas, Missouri, a small family-run bakery called Coral Cracker and Candy, which produced both biscuits and candy. This time period marked a significant shift in the history of biscuits, as they evolved from being bland and unappetizing military hardtacks to becoming delicious treats that families could enjoy. This transformation was largely driven by the addition of sugar, which became cheaper and easier to produce thanks to new innovations at the time. The introduction of sugar not only made biscuits tastier, but also more appealing to a wider audience. Recognizing the business potential, Jacob persuaded his brother Joseph to become his partner, and together they renamed it the Luce Brothers Manufacturing Company. The company quickly grew into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Jacob soon made another clever business move. He and his lawyer, Adolphus Green, convinced 34 other bakeries to form a conglomerate with the Luce Brothers, giving rise to the American Biscuit Company. The conglomerate was immediately successful, so successful in fact that it forced bakeries in other regions to form their own conglomerates, resulting in the New York Biscuit Company and the United States Baking Company. The new rivalry between the 3 conglomerates quickly escalated into a full-blown war that resulted in the price of biscuits falling by 40%. As expected, no one wins in a price war. The American Biscuit Company started struggling with its bottom line in the red, barely keeping the company afloat. The Biscuit Betrayal. Eventually, the stress of the cookie war made Jacob Luce seriously ill. Exhausted and embittered by the long war, Jacob could no longer focus on leading the company. Choosing health over wealth, he decided to step down as president of the American Biscuit Company and focused on his recovery. His brother, Joseph, was chosen as the new president. Little did he know that Joseph had grown tired of the cookie war between the 3 conglomerates and was looking for a solution. In February 1898, Joseph Luce decided it was time to end the war. Joining forces with the New York Biscuit Company and the United States Baking Company, Joseph formed a new conglomerate that became the largest baking conglomerate in America, the National Biscuit Company, or Nabisco. Joseph had purposely left out Jacob from the merger process, opening a rift between them. When Jacob heard the news, he hurriedly wrote a letter to Joseph, begging him to not join the very people who drove him to his sickbed, to no avail. Joseph pushed through to make the merger a reality. Before Joseph could finally relax after ending the pointless war, however, he realized he made a fatal mistake. Adolphus Green, the same lawyer who helped form the first conglomerate, was responsible for the paperwork of the new conglomerate. He saw an opportunity and appointed himself as Nabisco's president, while naming the Luce Brothers as only puppet board members. Green successfully took away the Luce Brothers Company and became the president of America's largest baking company. When Jacob heard the news, he felt hopeless. Both Luce Brothers were left betrayed and bitter, having lost everything they had built. The Birth of Hydrox. A few years later, Jacob pushed himself to recover and reconcile with his brother Joseph. Together, they decided to go after Nabisco. In 1902, they liquidated their Nabisco holdings and formed a new company with a new partner named John Wiles, calling it the Luce Wiles Biscuit Company. Meanwhile, Green had been dominating the biscuit market with Nabisco, all thanks to a revolutionary new technology. You see, back then, biscuits were actually sold in barrels. Problem was, customers had to buy in bulk, and it was prone to breaking or spoiling. To solve this problem, Nabisco introduced inner seal packaging where their biscuits were wrapped in wax paper sleeves before placing them in smaller cardboard containers. It was clever engineering, and it paid off massively. Launching this new line of biscuits as You Need a Biscuit, Nabisco cornered the national cookie market in no time. Seeing his adversaries succeed, Jacob realized he needed a groundbreaking invention that would immediately outshine Nabisco's products beyond just improving on packaging. Jacob tinkered with hundreds of recipes before zooming in on the latest trend at the time: chocolate. He realized mixing chocolate into a sugar and butter dough would drastically improve its flavor and stand out in a market saturated with simple sugar and butter biscuits. But that's not all. His creativity led him to develop a second innovation, having vanilla cream sandwiched between the two chocolate cookies. Bravo! To make the cookies even more memorable, Jacob bought a special custom machine that allowed him to both cut and emboss patterns on up to 80 cookies per minute. A floral print featuring the unique flower, Oreo Daphne, was chosen to make the cookie appear fancier. His revolutionary cookie was now ready for the market, but before he launched, he needed to come up with an appealing name. During this period, Americans were concerned with the purity of their food thanks to unsavory food companies using fillers such as chalk and brick dust in the products to reduce production costs. This harmful practice was so common that Congress enacted the Pure Food and Drug Act in 1906. Jacob wanted his cookies named to reflect purity and quality to alleviate these concerns. During brainstorming, both brothers kept coming back to water, as it was the pure substance they knew. The Luce brothers decided to combine the chemical elements of water, hydrogen, and oxygen and came up with Hydrox. Honestly, this name did not grow well. For us today, the name probably evoked images of hydrogen peroxide, not exactly something tasty to eat or drink. But surprisingly, Jacob was right on the money. When Hydrox launched in 1908, Americans fell in love with it, buying it in droves. The cookies were delicious, affordable, and easily stood out. Soon enough, Hydrox grew to become the second largest baking company right behind Nabisco. Not wanting to let go of his cookie dominance, Green led Nabisco to create their own version of Hydrox in 1912, copying practically every element of Hydrox down to the shape, filling, and flower pattern embossed on the cookie, all except for the formula, which would be important later on. Nabisco named their version Oreo, a nod to the Oreo Daphne plant that originally inspired the Hydrox design. And it flopped. Oreo was selling at a loss for years after launch. One store even struggled to get rid of 700 tins despite having large sales. Meanwhile, Hydrox was booming. Hydrox had become one of the most popular biscuits in America thanks to its focus on pure ingredients. This focus allowed Hydrox to earn a kosher certification and popularity in the Jewish community. On the other hand, Oreo used lard, pig fat, which was considered not kosher and wouldn't change the formula until decades later. Hydrox's well-founded concerns for purity and flavor triumphed over Oreo's corporate greed-fueled formula. The end. Or at least, that's how it should have been. Crumbling to pieces. Unfortunately for Hydrox, Jacob suddenly passed away from heart disease in 1922, and Joseph also passed away from an unknown cause just a year later, leaving their partner John to take up the reins and battle Nabisco alone. This loss of leadership marked a turning point in Hydrox's fortune, as that same year, Nabisco wisened up and played their trump card: advertising. Through market research, Nabisco realized Oreo's small, loyal fanbase had a unique habit. They liked to play a little game where they twisted one side of the Oreo to see which side ends up with the cream. Together with friends, they'd even bet on which side ends up with the cream, with the winner eating the cookie with cream. It's nothing more than a silly habit, but Nabisco sensed it could become a fun tradition. Oreo's The Twist ad campaign ran in 1923, and Oreo's sales finally skyrocketed. Oreo's ad campaigns since then always focused on how fun it was to eat an Oreo, adding the lick and dunk messages later in the 1950s. Hydrox responded with its own ad campaign, but it sucked. The ad message was always the same: Hydrox is the original cookie. Hydrox is #1. And
I mean, you like a creamy center? Here's a creamy center. Thick, delicious, creamy. And you like a dark, crunchy chocolate cookie? Well, here it is. But you gotta remember my name, Hydrox. Hydrox. Don't forget, Hydrox. Remember, Hydrox.
That's it. Instead of highlighting how delicious and exciting their cookie was, even if compared with Oreo, like the Coke and Pepsi ads over the years, Hydrox's ads seemed like the boy who cried wolf, claiming itself to be the original and nothing else. Hydrox learned the hard way that being the first was actually overrated. Slowly but surely, the new generation of kids growing up watching Oreo ads ended up loving it. Worse, now that the consumers associate biscuits with fun, Hydrox's chemical-sounding name made it unrelatable and irrelevant. Adding insult to injury, Nabisco finally increased the price of Oreo, making Hydrox look like the cheaper alternative. Eventually, in 1941, John Wiles passed away, and the new president, Hanford Maine, officially changed the company's name from Loose Wiles Biscuit Company to Sunshine Biscuits. However, this name change did little to help Hydrox's rapidly falling sales. Nabisco and Sunshine kept trying to one-up the other with new cookie variants. For instance, Sunshine created animal crackers and toy cookies, while Nabisco made Barnum's Animals. This battle lasted throughout the 20th century, with Oreo gaining more customers and Hydrox slowly fading away. Only Hydrox's kosher certification helped it retain loyal customers in the Jewish community. Sunshine Biscuits was unable to keep with the competition and was eventually sold to Keebler Foods in 1996. In a last-ditch effort, Keebler tried to revive Hydrox by changing the recipe and renaming it to Droxy's, hoping to make it sound less chemical and more fun. However, this was unsuccessful. In 1998, Oreo stole Hydrox's final trump card and became kosher certified. Hydrox's last consumers were no more. In 2001, Kellogg bought Keebler, and by 2003, they had discontinued Hydrox. However, Hydrox didn't stay dead for long. In 2008, Kellogg's briefly brought Hydrox back after fans pleaded for it. As Gary Nadea, a Hydrox fan, said, "This is a dark time in cookie history, and for those of you who say, 'Get over it, it's only a cookie,' you have not lived until you have tasted a Hydrox." But it wasn't long before Hydrox was once again buried under the corporate graveyard. The final comeback. In 2015, Elia Kassoff, a Hydrox fan, decided he'd had enough. He was tired of snacks he's enjoyed as a kid getting killed off to serve a company's bottom line, and believed there was still a market for these items. Kassoff purchased the Hydrox trademark and re-released it under his company, Leaf Brands, along with a couple of other childhood favorites. However, his journey to redeem the disgraced cookie was a rough one. Oreo's cookie prejudice remained strong, and it wouldn't let another contender threaten its throne without a fight, even if the means were as dirty and black as its cookie. As a market leader, Oreo was a category captain in retail stores, giving it the right to control the position of Oreo and its competitors in the aisle. With great power comes great responsibility, right? But Oreo just didn't care. Oreo distributors intentionally pushed Hydrox cookies to the back of the shelves, turned them upside down to hide the logo, or placed them on top shelves that customers couldn't reach. In some cases, they even threatened to stop selling their products to stores loyal to Hydrox. Talk about an abuse of power. In January 2019, Kassoff filed a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, claiming that Oreo saw us as a threat, so they started hiding our cookies on shelves to get us discontinued. While the FTC had not yet responded, fans of Hydrox cookies could still find their favorite cookie in stores across America or order them online. Meanwhile, Oreo continued to reign supreme as the world's favorite cookie. The war was far from over. Will Hydrox succeed in making its comeback under Elia Kassoff's stewardship? Would knowing the truth made you less inclined to reach for an Oreo the next time you got the cookie cravings? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, and check out our other videos on why Bernard Arnault is the richest man in the world and why Dana White is the most underrated CEO in sports.